today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the Mattel DC Comics Multiverse Batman Arkham Knight, Arkham Knight. The mysterious villain from the actual self-titled video game release. Arkham Knight comes with what appears to be a rifle. He is, of course, a 3 3/4 sized figure. A little bit smaller if you wanted to get yourself a smaller Arkham Knight in hand. Highly detailed and authentic from the folks over at Mattel. Back of the package. A very quick read-up says DC Comics Multiverse figures are inspired by the comic-based, character-rich entertainment sources such as movies and video games. These figures are meticulously designed to be truly authentic, celebrating the many universes of entertaining DC Comics material. Other figures available, there are the Joker, Hush, and a Batman. Real name unknown, high-tech gear unknown, and dangerous. Pretty much doesn't tell us anything. However, I can tell you that you can go to www.mattel.com if you'd like to check out more. Spot's going to take a break and get this opened up. When we come back, though, we're going to get a better look at the DC Comics Multiverse Arkham Knight. There's more heading away, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Accessory-wise, he gets the rifle, and unfortunately the rifle got a little on the warped side by having it in the packaging. Despite that, and despite the fact it has a big, bold, made in China symbol on the side, it is rubbery, which would also lend itself as to why it's as warped as it is. I can easily just warm that up, kind of just mold it back into place. The rifle looks pretty good. There's not really any paint on it to speak of, but the rifle as a whole looks pretty good. You can take the rifle and put it into his hand. I also want to touch base on the fact that the handle is very broad. Look at the size of that handle. It's not very small. Despite that, and with a little bit of finagling, Spot uses that word a lot, with a little bit of finagling you can get the rifle into his hand, but I'm surprised that the handle is as broad as it is. It really didn't need to be that wide, and yet they opted to give it a very broad handle. Put that to the side. Let's have a look at Arkham Knight. I think the figure really is decent. Now, with the multiverse figures, sadly, the line is pretty much at the end of its life. Spot picked these up just on eBay, but the run of the line as a whole pretty much has died off. It means, for starters, you can get the line, if you want to pick up these figures, it means you can pick them up a little bit cheaper. That's one good thing. But it's a shame that they really haven't continued on the line and done more with it. It's a very Iron Man designed style of suit, very armored plated, as with the much larger 6-inch figure that we had to look at. Even though it's a 3 3/4 figure, which is really almost half the size, the paint's pretty good on it. It's got some of that red camo on it, and some little paint accents on the front of the chest, as well as the same matching symbol on the shoulders as well. Let's get a gander at his face. Bring the camera in there. In. Here we go. You can see there's a little bit of paint lines added in there for, I guess, presumably his eyes. It's not quite a solid black. There's a little bit of that darker, almost gunmetal silver breaking it up. That's good. I like that. He's a good size for really his size. He's got a good level of detail to him. That same gunmetal gray also carries over to the side gauntlets on his wrists, or on his forearms. It's also that same coloring down on his knee guards as well. All around, I do like the figure. Just as a kind of just a fun size comparison, there is next to Wonder Woman, Catwoman. Catwoman is appearing to be just a little bit taller than him, not by much though. Maybe no, you know what? They are closer to almost being the same size as Catwoman, being a little bit taller. Just showing you the differences between the two. Catwoman, really disappointing in the way that she has that swivel hinge in her legs. So, of course, when you rotate the legs, they don't hinge out. They only swivel back and forth. At least for Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight does have a splits. He has the splits cut in the thigh, allowing the legs to spread out. Not that you would pose him that far out, but at least it gives you some options. Speaking of posability, Arkham Knight's head is on a ball joint. The only downside, though, is that the head always tips down. There appears to be no way to tip the head back, a lot of it due to the collar that's at the back of the head. That really prevents the head from going any further back. As for shoulders, shoulders hinge out, and the shoulder pads are a separate rubbery piece. They're not the most pliable, but at least they stay out of the way if you want to move the arms out. A swivel point also in that same socket area of the shoulders, a hinge in the elbow, has a rotation in the wrists, rotation in the waist. As we already had discussed, he's got the swivel cut, or that split cut in the top of his thigh area, a swivel cut at the top of the thigh, a single hinge knee, and unfortunately no articulation in the ankles. Missing articulation in the ankles doesn't really bother me all that much. Honestly, I would almost prefer the split cut on the legs rather than ankle articulation, but that's just me. And in case you happen to come across this display stand, Arkham Knight also has peg holes on the undersides of his feet, should you want to display him on a display stand, which is probably what I will do, because then I can, do a little bit more in the way of posable options. Not that he does have much, because again, he doesn't have the pivot in the ankle, but at least you can get something a little bit more dynamic going. I like the figure. Again, it's a shame that Multiverse figures just have kind of, well, the 6-inch figures are still doing well, but these 3 3/4-inch figures sadly have died. Spot picked up like the remaining few that I guess I really haven't had a chance to pick up yet. The good thing about these, fairly inexpensive, unless scalper-wise, you find a couple of ones that are a little harder to find, like the Nightfall Batman. He was a little bit more, he actually still is a little bit more expensive on eBay. But I mean, these figures are relatively inexpensive now if you want to get them in the aftermarket. Today's Toy Spot, we were having a look at the DC Comics Multiverse. We're looking today at Arkham Knight, well, from Batman Arkham Knight. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more toy spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.